We're here with Gus Solomoms. Well, you're the mentor to these young choreographers.
Right. I was doing, I guess, sort of call it artistic advisor to a group of choreographers in a program at DNA called Raw Material. And it's an annual thing in which choreographers, young choreographers apply, and a panel picks 6 choreographers to work with over the course of about 6 months. And we meet monthly. And they bring in work to show, and we shape the work. They have discussions with each other, they get each other's feedback and responses to it. And the nice thing is that they're required, when they sign the contract, they're required to come to all the showings so that they can get the advantage of everybody else's feedback, because all the different points of view contribute to what each choreographer is trying to create. And hearing feedback from other people with very different aesthetic points of view is always helpful.
You know, one of the things they said is that you were very direct.
Oh, yes. I mean, there's no point in not being direct. That's what we're all there for. We're all in the same room to get feedback. And I make no bones about, I mean, often what happens nowadays is everybody gets it. It's a kumbaya moment, and everybody can contribute, and everybody's lovely, and everybody's right, and everybody's sweet. And the dances don't get any better, because nobody points out what's missing when you're doing something that goes on the stage for other people to watch. You have to present it. And there are things about presentation that don't necessarily destroy the texture of the work. For instance, there's one piece that was very delicate, the opening piece. Very intimate piece. It might more appropriately have been done in a living room. But it wasn't a living room. Right. It was a theater. So how do we make something so small and intimate project for an audience? So that was part of our discussion and part of our problem solving for that piece. Another piece was more theatrical, and how do we make sure that it has a point, and that the point is made, other than just we're looking at a bunch of movement.
Right, and it stays focused.
Exactly, exactly. What is your concept? What is your idea? And how do I make how do you make this idea readable?
Now, you know, each work was only 10 minutes long, but even then, 10 minutes can be a very long
Absolutely.
Time if it's not directed.
Absolutely.
Now, something that we had discussed earlier, I think, is really important. How I see the process moving because of money and time. Even choreographers who are established now seem to be collaborating, or at least trusting another eye.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because there is no substitute for having an experienced eye look at your work. Because and no matter how experienced you are yourself, you are personally involved in the work, and there goes your objectivity. So you know what you intend, but you don't know what other people see in what you intend. And then you need to get that feedback from someone honest who's going to tell you, well, this is what I got. Is this what you wanted me to get? And then they can say, oh, well, no. And then go back and look and see how they can change it so that they express what it is they're after. There's no substitute for that. And more experienced choreographers are doing what are called workshops, or open showings, or what have you, but just precisely for that reason, to get feedback. I think what's been my experience in looking at those open showings is that still it's a bunch of their friends, or people who want to see their work, who are going to say it's lovely. So they don't really get a lot of incisive feedback. I mean, why is this so long? Why are these people over here? Why is this happening now? Etc. So I guess over the course of time, and I think, for instance, Margie Jenkins' program Chime is much more about experienced choreographers working with other experienced choreographers, not so much emerging. But the earlier you start, the better in getting an eye on how to use constructive feedback to focus your work. And that's what I think DNA is doing in a really fine way, and comprehensively. They're serious about it. They have several programs that are dealing with how to make choreography better.
Well, it was, what I found very interesting was that each choreographer did have a very different point of view.
Absolutely.
And then together it made a very interesting program. And because they were just 10 minutes long, they were almost like tone poems. They were almost like studies, works that could be developed into larger works.
That was often the case. There were, I remember saying, now if this were going to be the hour-long version of this piece, the proportions would be different. You could take more time to develop the opening, but you have 10 minutes. So what are the proportions that you want to present? If you want to have half your dance be the opening development, and then you have no time to go where you want it to go. So things have to be shifted in terms of proportion.
Well, they do that with theater. You have readings, you have...
Absolutely.
With Broadway, I saw a production recently that is still in the process of being shaped. And my personal opinion was that it took too long to happen, and then the ending happened too fast. But again, I think that because she was in a situation where then she got feedback, and then they had it was 70 minutes by the time we saw it, but it had been 2 hours prior to that, and they had carved it down, and so that she's getting more and more the bare bones.
Exactly. That's the 70-minute rule is my rule. If you're going to do an evening-length piece, a dance piece especially, 70 minutes is it. If you can't tell it in that long, then you need to tell another story. And what was I going to say about that? The idea that in theater, it's always collaborative by definition.
Right.
So there are more voices at the table all at once. Choreography has traditionally been one artist with a vision doing it. And that's the notion that needs now to be, or is now being modified.
Well, it's funny because that part of it is true, but to a great degree, and I asked the choreographers this, dance is a supportive art. You still need music, you still need costumes and lighting and all of this to kind of make it to have a presentation. But you're right, though, all of those elements still are dictated by the choreographer.
Exactly. Unless in theater, everybody's at the table. With choreography, the choreographer picks the music, or even the composer, and says, write this. And, one of the pieces was highly collaborative. There were a number of collaborators. There's a food artist, and a visual artist, and a costume artist, and a composer, and the choreographer. I don't know whether they met together in what capacity, on what regularity, but there was a collaborative effort, and that piece, I think, had a more profound theatricality than most of the other pieces, and it could be because of that, because there were more voices at the table. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. You're always very generous when I come in and talk to you about it, and you're such a wealth of information.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you.